Remember the brief period when smartphones had pop-up cameras? No notches, no hole punch cameras, just a clean display edge to edge. Pop-up cameras were supposed to be the answer, giving us the all-screen experience we'd always wanted. For a moment of time, it felt like the future was here. I'm gonna have to bring this phone up again, but personally, my favorite design ever was the OnePlus 7 Pro. It nailed the full screen look, and the pop-up camera was a genius way to pull it off. When you needed it, the selfie camera would quickly pop up, and then disappear after use just as fast. No notch, no cutout, it was just pure screen real estate. But here we are today, with nearly every smartphone having a hole punch or notch for a selfie camera. So if pop-up cameras gave us the perfect screen we all wanted, why did they almost disappear as quickly as they arrived? To answer that, we're gonna have to take a closer look at the rise and fall of pop-up cameras, and why they're now practically extinct. The race for a full screen experience really took off after 2017, when Apple released the iPhone X with its now iconic notch. Love it or hate it, the cutout in the screen marked a turning point in smartphone design. The iPhone X was one of the first mainstream phones to reduce the bezel by so much, which pushed other brands to follow suit. Consumers had never seen a display like this. It felt futuristic, and suddenly people are craving that immersive edge-to-edge look. And while Apple settled on a notch, other manufacturers weren't quite ready to make the same compromise. Instead, they saw it as a challenge. Create a phone with the thinnest bezels possible, without sacrificing the screen's real estate for the front-facing camera. It was a tough problem to solve. Some companies tried slimmer notches, others tried teardrop shapes, but for those serious about pushing boundaries, the solution was to hide the camera entirely. This was the dawn of the pop-up camera, a new way to deliver the all-screen design people were now demanding, without any intrusive cutouts or notches disrupting the display. When you needed to take a selfie, the camera would rise up from the phone's top edge, and then would go back inside the phone when you were done. For the first time since the introduction of smartphones, you had a phone that offered a completely immersive display. It was exciting, it looked futuristic, and it was honestly just fun to use. One unexpected bonus of the pop-up camera was privacy. In a world where data privacy concerns are growing, the physical barrier of a pop-up mechanism provided a layer of security that traditional front-facing cameras simply couldn't match. When the camera wasn't in use, it was literally hidden inside the phone and out of sight. For anyone a bit uneasy about a camera always staring back at them, the pop-up design was reassuring. It's the same idea that's now led to an entire market of laptop camera covers and privacy shutters. You know exactly when the lens is exposed, giving you the confidence that no background app could access it without your permission. But even as pop-up cameras gained traction, they were still a rare breed. Most smartphone companies were hesitant to dive into this tech, mainly because it introduced something unusual for a smartphone: a moving part. And while the full screen look was cool, some users felt a little nervous about having this motorized component that popped up every time you needed a selfie. As quickly as pop-up cameras rose to fame, they began to fade from the spotlight. OnePlus, one of the pioneers in this tech, and several other brands embraced this innovative feature for a brief moment, but soon after, they pivoted to hole punch cameras in their later models. So why the change? Well, it turns out that consumers found those small cutouts to be less intrusive than initially anticipated. Our eyes are actually surprisingly adaptable, and after a while, that little dot ends up blending into the display, almost disappearing from your view. But it wasn't just about aesthetics. The pop-up camera mechanism felt complex and a bit foreign compared to solid-state components that had become the norm in smartphones, sparking concerns over the long-term reliability. In contrast, solid-state parts, like the ones used in hole punch designs, offered a sense of confidence. They're generally less prone to damage, which is crucial for the everyday user who rely on their phone for everything from video calls to selfies. With the added worries of wear and tear, it's no wonder why consumers gravitated towards simpler solutions that promise durability alongside functionality. And then there's the issue of water and dust resistance. Pop-up cameras often compromise the phone's IP rating, making it significantly harder to achieve the level of protection that consumers have come to expect from flagship devices. In an era where water resistance is practically a standard requirement, pop-up cameras started to feel less practical and more like a risk. Another crucial factor to consider is how these moving parts affected battery life and internal space. The motors necessary for the pop-up mechanism inevitably added extra strain on the battery, and those motorized components also took up valuable internal space, which could have been used for a bigger battery or other essential hardware. This meant while the pop-up camera offered an innovative design feature, it also came with some heavy trade-offs that simply didn't align with what consumers wanted in a reliable smartphone. As a result, the desire to have a full screen experience began to lose its shine due to it being less practical and reliable.